intrinsically means good in and of itself. You don't have to add anything else to it. It stands all on its own. Happiness is on almost everyone's list. How many of you would rather have less happiness than more happiness? There are a few people. They're hardwired a little differently. You know, and I don't mean to be rude. We usually find a couch for them. We sit down and find out what's wrong. We just don't think it's normal to not want to be happy at some level or in some way. Happiness seems to be something we all desire. I mean, how many people are thrilled when you put a hammer on your nail, or you stub your toe, or anything that causes pain? We're just not, or produces an unhappiness, a bad taste in our mouth. We'd rather avoid that. We'd rather have the things that make us feel good. The real question is whether or not happiness is the only thing that's important. Now, next week we're going to study a Greek philosopher named Epicurus who said, well, what is happiness? For most of us, happiness is a good feeling. It's a pleasurable feeling. John Stuart Mill will tell us there's a difference between physical pleasure and intellectual pleasure. Physical pleasure, we all know, is that 10 minutes of pleasure. Intellectual pleasure is perhaps having the possibility of saving someone's life. A year from now, that 10 minutes of pleasure last night isn't going to remember. I don't remember. Yeah, I probably did. But you saved someone's life, and it'll be just like yesterday in your mind. But Epicurus is going to say happiness is not necessarily about feeling good. Oftentimes, happiness comes at the end of an extended time of pain. For instance, on August 10th, 1996, I went to my doctor and he told me I was in stage 4 cancer. And by the time I made it down to the University of Michigan, they said, you're going to be in a research experiment and we're going to give you no hope because you're at the end of your line. 30 of us put Narport in here and ran a Teflon tube into your heart because they want that chemo to go right into your system. Chemo comes in a bag that you cannot transport across state lines. It's poison. You need a federal license. Normally you go into the hospital and they put you in a bed with a jack and they give you a 4-hour drip or an 8-hour drip. I had a 120-hour drip twice. Put a little pump in there and pump it. And chemo it's really metal. 5FU is the setup chemo, and then 8 hours in they gave me this heavy metal called cisplatin. It's really platinum. Almost blew my kidneys out. That's why I wear hearing aids. Blew half my hearing out. Lost 37 pounds. 3 months of being poisoned. Not a happy time. Right after that, they gave me 70 rads of facial radiation. So you have 3 major saliva glands, and these 2 no longer work. They killed him, and this is the only one that worked. I lost 54 pounds that time. You know that little thing in your throat that hangs down in your uvula? And you know what a canker sore is and how painful those are? Yeah, my whole mouth was a canker sore on that uvula. Yeah, I couldn't drink water. It burnt water. Last 2 weeks of radiation, I lost 21 pounds. So I get out and I go back to my town and I go into a bookstore and there's a guy I've known about 20 years, a guy named Todd Ortley. And I went up to him and I said, hey Todd, how you doing? And he looked at me and he looked at me and he looked at me. He says, boy, your voice is familiar, but I can't place your face. And I thought, what do I look like? Now I'm about 183, now I was down to 144. And then they put me through the surgery. They had to take a bunch of my, anyway. But now you ask me, after all of that, how am I doing? I'm a happy guy. The other 29 aren't. They didn't make it. I'm the only one that made it. Don't know why. I'm a happy guy. Epicurus says sometimes you need to choose to go through a painful experience to come out the other end and experience happiness. If you never have to go through pain, I'm not for going through it. They said, you got a choice. You can just lay down and die. Or you can go through this therapy and maybe it'll work and maybe it won't. Why I'm the only one left standing, I have no idea. Of course, we say no pain, no. Happiness is on everybody's list. Is it the only thing that's essential to make life good? Principle of utility we'll study about, the greatest happiness for the greatest number. That's how we regulate most of our lives, but the greatest happiness for the greatest number could also produce the greatest amount of unhappiness for a small number of people. 10,000 Romans in the Colosseum, delirious that 3 Christians are about to be eaten alive by lions, does not necessarily make that kind of slaughter legal or ethical. Moral virtue, we'll talk about that. Moral duty, virtue ethics, ethical egoism. These are all theories that come out of the principles that I'm going to give you in about 5 minutes. How we go about evaluating human behavior. What's the right way to live and what isn't the right way to live. To get there, then, we have to go through two moral points of view. One is called moral absolutism. I shared this with you on the first day. Moral absolutism is the belief that there are absolute standards against which moral questions can be judged and that certain actions are right or wrong regardless of the context of the act. It doesn't matter what you think about it. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And we believe that's an axiom, that's a rule that has to be upheld when it comes to justice. It's important that truth is the foundation of justice. When people lie, we can't get to the truth. But if we tell the truth, there's an assumption there that at least we'll get the facts right, and maybe when we get the facts right, we can begin to discern whether or not the action that produced those facts is a legitimate, morally acceptable action, or whether it isn't. I don't like you, and so I kill you. And that's considered an immoral act. But you try and take my life, and I defend my life, and I take your life. In both instances, I take your life, but one of them is morally acceptable, and one of them is morally unacceptable. We're trying to figure this out. Everybody with me on this? Okay. Looking at things this way, the actions are inherently moral or immoral regardless of the beliefs and goals of the individual, society, or culture that engages in the action. So all religions worldwide believe in the golden rule. Do unto others as you want them to do to you. The only problem is that's not the golden rule. We always get it wrong. It says as you want people to treat you, so you have to treat them. Farmers are the brightest people on the planet. Put nothing in the ground, you're going to get nothing back. You want to be loved? Try loving someone and see if love doesn't come back. You want to be kind? Try being kind to someone. Would you like me to take that cart back for you? Would you like me to help you put your groceries in the trunk of your car? Do you need a hand? They see you holding the door and they start with, don't run, I got nothing but time, trust me. And yet, do we really practice the golden rule? We'll get into that later in the semester, too. It's rooted in the idea that morals are inherent in the laws of the universe, the nature of humanity, the will of God, or some other fundamental source. Most of us lead our lives by what we call moral relativism. It's relative to our particular culture. Some cultures you steal, I hope you could write with the other hand, because there's no questions about it. They're going to chop your hand off. You steal in our country, steal again. DUI, they'll drop it to impaired. Some other countries, Germany, when I was stationed in Germany, don't get busted drunk driving. You lose your license, and if you kill someone drunk, you're going to go to prison for life. No questions asked. Cultural relativism. Those values are embedded in the culture, and that's how they see things, and they think that's the right way to live. We believe infanticide is wrong. Infanticide is taking a defective newborn and leaving it out to the elements, like an anencephalitic child. Anencephalitic children are born with a brain stem and no higher brain. The longest I've ever heard survive is maybe a year, most 2-3 weeks. The Romans used to leave them out to the elements. When we get to Aristotle and moral virtue, we'll find out that the Greeks used to leave them out to the elements too under certain circumstances. And we go, how can you do that? Well, they justified it. They lived with it. They thought it was the right thing to do. Cultural relativism. Values that are established by culture. You have cultural relativist values in you. You were born into this culture. We're technically a libertarian, democratic society. Those values have been put in you. Doesn't make them right. And other people will look at you and say, well, that's no way to live. And we'll go through that later in the semester. This all goes back to moral reasoning. This course is about getting us to think through moral issues and trying to decide if there's a correct way to live or not a correct way to live. And we're going to be on opposite sides of the equation. And that doesn't make one wrong and one right. And by the way, they keep trying to tell you that it's either black or white, left or right, and everything in the middle is gray. That's not true. In the middle is called alternative ways of problem solving. There aren't just two solutions. There are many ways to look at issues, and I'll try and provoke you to look at those ways, and then it's up to you what you believe and decide in. Any questions about moral reasoning, people? So we all have the capacity. This course is designed to help you with critical reasoning, how to look at something and something else and see, do these go together? Is there any harmony? Maybe there can never be a resolution. Just how to go about processing this information. That being said, I want to talk to you today about human behavior and how we're going to go about forming two principles from which we develop theories, from which we decide how we're going to live in the box, what our code of ethics is going to be. So human behavior is real simple. Human behavior has three parts. There's a motive that produces an action that produces a consequence. Human behavior is super simple to understand. We don't act without reason, so motive gives us the reason. We take the action, and that produces a consequence. Okay. 2,500 years ago, a Greek philosopher named Aristotle came to this conclusion right away. And Aristotle said what's important is the consequence of our action. If the action produces a desired consequence, we're going to assume it was a good action. Now, why would he think that? Well, because everything you do has a purpose in mind. It has a consequence, even when it's negligible, even when it doesn't carry much weight. Why did you all wear clothes today? Because you know that you're going to get a ticket if you don't put something on. Why did you wear what you wore? Some people don't care. Got up late, just throw on a shirt, pair of slacks, shorts, whatever, and come to... Who cares? There's no clothes police as long as you got clothes on. Now me, I can't do that Monday through Thursday. I have to look pretty. I have to wear business casual clothes. And by the way, if I repeat myself, because these are not canned lectures, so and I don't remember where I say things or what I say to people, so if I repeat myself, déjà vu, that's a French word, we heard that before. Okay, déjà vu. So did I ask how many of you work in Publix? And you're going to see me not dressed like this when I'm, because I can't go to Publix in here because I'm in the classroom, but when I get out of the classroom, I will not look like this, I promise you. What'd you eat in the morning? Sometimes it's just to grab something, put it in your face because you need an energy exchange. Other times you're concerned and you're trying to eat things that you think will do certain things for your body. Aristotle was right. Everything we do has a purpose. The action produces a desired consequence. Consequences are important. We're consequentially driven. He names it then, and you'll see this on your quiz, teleology. Teleology is really two Greek words together. Ology always means the study of. In this case, it's the study of telos. Telos are ends, purposes, or consequences. Aristotle says life is purpose-driven. Even when the purposes are minimally important to us, everything we do is for a reason. We want the correct consequence at the end of our action. Everybody understand that? Okay. Well, let's put that in the real world. I'm going to assume that most of you in the classroom, because you've been told if you have a sufficient education, there's chances are you make a better living than if you don't have an education. The more money you have, better lifestyle you might be able to produce for yourself.